Hello, chess heads! That's what we affectionately call someone like you who wants to learn and play chess. My name is Susan, and I'm going to help you learn the wonderful game of chess. Once you finish watching this DVD, you will know more about chess than you ever knew before and be on your way to becoming a chess player yourself. Also, at the end of each chapter, we've included a short quiz, which will help remind you about the important rules of chess and the fun things you can and cannot do. Now, teaching chess is a big job, and it's one I prefer not to do all by myself. So I have asked my friends, King Harold and Champion, to join me. Say hello to the chess heads, guys.
Much obliged to make your acquaintance, chess heads. Please allow me to formally introduce myself. I am King Harold. Besides being the most important game piece, it's also my job to help you learn how to play the game. So pay attention, my loyal subjects. We have a lot to cover.
And I'm Champion. I'm the most popular game piece because I'm the most fun. I'm the only piece that can jump. See, like this. I can jump over other pieces, even the almighty king. Together, we are going to help you learn how to play so that soon you'll be playing chess all on your own.
Thanks, guys. Remember, you can watch this DVD as many times as you want and review the chapters as often as you need. Our journey is about to begin. We're starting our chess adventure. Where else but the chessboard? Each board has 64 squares, and believe it or not, each square has its own name, just like you and me. But these squares aren't named Robert or Emily. They have different names.
On the chessboard, there are lines that go left to right, named A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. In the opposite direction, these squares are called ranks, which are numbered 1 to 8.
So you can imagine where the lines intersect is a square with a name. Starting with the letter first, here are some examples. This is B1, A2, D4, and F5.
Using the ranks and files of the chessboard to determine the name of a square is the same way you use lines on a map to find the coordinate of a location.
Now, not only do the squares have names, but also they sit on different sides. Squares on the left side are the queen side, and these squares on the right side are the king side. But there are other ways to divide the chessboard too.
The first 4 ranks right here are white's territory, while the 5th through 8th ranks are black's territory. These squares, A3, B2, and C1, are called diagonals. There are lots of diagonals on the chessboard, and notice all the squares in a diagonal are the same color. The middle of the board? Well, that's easy. It's called the center. And these squares sit in the center. It is perhaps the most important part of the chessboard.
Well, I think we've done it. That's what the chessboard is all about. You may want to take the quiz that's coming up next to see how well you know your chessboard.
Okay, hands on your buzzers. Here we go. How many squares are there on the chessboard? A, 32, B, 64, or C, 100? If you picked A, you're only half right. The correct answer is B. There are 64 squares on a chessboard. Question 2. Which part of the chessboard is the most important? Is it A, the center, B, the edges, or C, the table that it sits on? While it is important to have a table to play on, the correct answer is A, the center. Okay, here's a true-false question for you. Diagonals always consist of alternating squares, black and white. Good job! The correct answer is false. Diagonals always consist of the same color.
Okay, chess heads, let's get to the exciting part of learning about each chess piece. Each piece has a special shape, a special name, a value, special moves and powers. It's part of what makes chess so exciting. So where do we begin? Let's start with the rook. Harry, fill us in.
Oh, if I must. These are rooks. They have a value of 5 points each. Nicknames, sometimes called the tower or castle because of its shape. Moves, straight lines, straight lines.
That's right, Harry. The rook is a line piece. It can only move in a straight path on the lines and ranks, capturing anything in its way. Also, the rook can move any number of squares. You decide how far you want it to go. Our next piece on the chessboard is the bishop. Let's go to the stat center for more.
These are bishops. They have a value of 3 points each. Nicknames, sometimes called the elephant. Moves, the key word here is diagonals.
That's the word to remember when it comes to the bishop, diagonals. Let's take a look. The bishop can move any number of squares along its diagonal. You decide how far you want your bishop to go.
Remember, the bishop cannot hop over the other pieces.
Your bishops live on the same color squares for the entire chess game. If it starts on black, it stays on black. Your bishop on the white square stays on white. Next up is the king. Harold, take it away.
Ah, yes, thank you. Kings, like myself, are the tallest piece on your chessboard. We have no value, but don't let that fool you. If you take your opponent's king, you win the chess game. So naturally that makes me, the king, the most important chess piece. Thank you, thank you. Moves. Well, I am a rather slow man. I usually just sit around being protected by other chess pieces. But after all, I am the king.
That's right. The king can only move one space at a time. So the king has the simplest move in chess. It can go one square in any direction. Now, let me let you in on a little chess strategy. For most of the game, you will want to hide your king. Keep him safe somewhere near the corner of the board, because when your opponent captures your king, the game is over. It's now time for me to tell you about a very special chess piece. It isn't just any chess piece. It is in fact the most powerful chess piece on your board. Have you guessed which piece it is? Okay, you guessed it. It's the queen.
This is the queen. And I must say, a gorgeous queen at that. They have a value of 9 points each, making the queen the most valuable piece on the chessboard. The queen is the queen. For this reason, she has no nicknames. Moves? Queens? They can do anything they want, moving around the chessboard like most of the other pieces.
The queen can move any number of squares along its lines, ranks, or its diagonals. This makes it the most powerful piece on the board. The queen can move this way, like a rook, or this way, just like the bishop. Or she can move one space at a time, just like the king. It's up to you.
Let's not take this too far, though. The queen cannot and will not be able to move like the knight. No jumping allowed when you're a queen. Those are the rules. Let's live by them.
Let's turn to the smallest pieces on the board, the pawns. I'll tell you right now, they are the least valuable of all the pieces, but they are important to your game. First, let's go to the stat center. King Harold, help us out.
These are pawns, the smallest chess piece. They have a value of a mere 1 point. Nicknames. In some languages they are called peasants. Moves, mostly 1 square at a time. They never move sideways or backwards. You and your opponent both have pawns on your chessboard.
Thanks, Harold. Let me tell you more about pawns. You may have noticed in the stats center we told you that a pawn normally moves 1 square at a time. But there is an exception to this rule. On your very first move, when it's still sitting on the second row, your pawn can move 1 or 2 squares. You decide.
Remember, after your pawn's first move, it can only advance 1 square at a time.
This means that each time a white pawn moves, it advances toward your opponent's side of the chessboard. And each time a black pawn moves, it advances toward the white side of the board. So when your pawn bumps into another chess piece, you're ready to capture it. But how does that happen? The pawn captures on a forward diagonal, like this. 1 square to the right diagonal or 1 square to the left. It can only capture if the diagonal square is occupied by an opponent's piece. If the diagonal square is empty or is occupied by a piece of a pawn's own color, the pawn cannot move to that square. In all captures, whether by a pawn or by another piece, the captured piece is removed from the chessboard. Only the opponent's pieces can be captured. Next up is the knight. But first, let's go to the stat center.
These are knights, usually in the shape of a horse's head. They have a value of 3 points. Special nickname, sometimes called the horse. Moves, this is special. The knight is the only chess piece that can jump. You and your opponent both have 2 knights each on your chessboard.
The knight has the trickiest move in chess. Jump, help me show the chess heads here. The knight moves 2 squares straight, then 1 square to the side, sort of like the letter L. This means a knight in the center of the chessboard has 8 possible moves. If your knight wants to land on a square which is occupied by your opponent's piece, the knight can capture it. If the square is occupied by your own piece, the knight is blocked and can't move to that square. Find another move.
Remember, the knight lands on a different color square every time it moves. And take a look at this. All 4 knights have 2 possible moves in the initial position. They just hop over the pawns in front of them, and only the knight can jump over the pawns. All the other pieces have to wait for those little pawns to move out of the way first.
Thanks, Champ. That's a lot to learn about the knight. So now you know about your chess pieces, what they can and cannot do on your chessboard. Make a point of playing with your pieces, move them around, get to know them, and how they can work for you. In the meantime, I have a little quiz for you to see how well you know your chess pieces.
Here we go again. What chess piece moves in an L-shaped pattern? Is it A, champion, B, the cute little horsey, C, the knight, or D, all of the above? And the answer is D. The knight is the only piece that moves in an L-shaped pattern. The most powerful chess piece is A, the king, B, Spider-Man, or C, the queen. Although the king and Spider-Man are indeed very powerful, the correct answer is C. The queen is the most powerful piece on the chessboard. Let's try this one. Which chess piece can only move along the diagonals? Is it A, the bishop, B, the knight, or C, Thursday? If you pick Thursday, I think you need to watch this chapter again. Everyone knows that the answer is Friday. No. The correct answer is, of course, A. the bishop.